I'll just ask Asha if you'll introduce yourself first.
Hi, I'm Asha. I'm workstream lead for establishing the NHS Digital Academy.
And then Amy.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy and I am the Programme Lead for the FEDIP in Digital Health Leadership at Imperial College London.
And Radhika.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Radhika. I am Programme Director for Digital Community Pharmacy, Optometry, Dentistry, Ambulance and Community Sectors in NHSX. And I was on the cohort 2 of the Digital Academy.
Great. And then Alan.
Hi, I'm Alan Sharp. I'm a digital transformation consultant working for South Central and West CSU, and I was on cohort 2 of the Digital Academy programme.
Great. Okay, so now we're going to move into the agenda really. And first of all, we're going to have an introduction about the Digital Academy and the Digital Health Leadership Programme. Then we're going to do a little talk. I'm going to do a little bit about FEDIP just to understand a little bit about what that is. And then we'll have a bit more of a detailed session and then an opportunity around the experiences of those that have been on the Digital Academy, and then we'll come back to wrap up with some questions. So first of all, I'm going to ask Asha and Amy if they will present a little bit about the Digital Health Leadership Programme.
Hi, I'm just getting my slides up. Although in true fashion, we're actually having to do workarounds, but it's all good. It means you can see it. Perfect. Can you see my screen? Cool. Andrew, you're the person I can see on today's webinar. It always fixates on one person, so I'll be looking for you for nods and shakes of heads. So me and Amy have already introduced ourselves, and to just give you a bit of context before we talk about the Digital Health Leadership Programme, the NHS Digital Academy and the consequent NHS Digital Health Leadership Programme directly fell out of recommendations from the WOCTA review in 2016, where there was an identified need to develop and invest in digital leaders. So we have again selected Imperial College London as our partner to deliver the programme, the Digital Health Leadership Programme, and they will be delivering this with the University of Edinburgh and HGR UK. We won't have the time to go into the detail of this today, but our future vision very much looks to expand the different offerings in the future to meet the needs of a much wider range of individuals, beyond the programme and in the future. And that's the reason why the workstream is called Establishing the NHS Digital Academy, which sometimes sounds a bit strange for something that's already around. So very much looking in the future to expand it and make sure it's, a much wider range of people have got access to these opportunities. For today, however, Amy and I will talk at a very high level about the application process and the support available, as we want you to get the most out of the panel today. And I've just dropped into the chat hot off the press. We do a much longer sort of 35 minute version of this where we go into the application process and programme in a lot more detail. I've just popped the YouTube link into the chat, so for those that want to look at that later on, that's there for you to look at too. Also, Amy and I will probably try to cover cohort sort of application and more technical questions in the chat, just to sort of, answer them there again so that the panel can make the use out of, their valuable insight. So onto the programme. So first of all, we've launched a new website and we're open for cohort 4 applications. The website's quite new. We are continuing to evolve it, so any feedback on that is welcome. Applications now close on Tuesday the 4th of May at midnight. I think it might be 23:59, but Tuesday night. And following that, we'll undertake shortlisting and longlisting with the view to notify individuals of outcomes by June, July. And then we'll also this year be offering feedback and signposting for all applicants, whether they were successful or not. As we know, sometimes people can feel a bit lost afterwards, especially if they get an unsuccessful outcome. We will adapt that bit of the timeline and update it in full once we've had the applications in, as it will partly be dictated by how many applications we actually do get in. The process for this year is just the application process, the application form, so there won't be interviews or anything afterwards for this year. Those who are successful will then complete an academic admissions process with Imperial College London. And I'm really keen to highlight, we don't want degrees to be a barrier to applying. It's not a prerequisite, and we know not everyone will have one. So as part of the academic admissions process, that's a bit of a tongue twister, you will be asked to provide previous academic records or evidence of equivalent experience, but this is a well-supported process, and you'll be well supported. So if you're concerned about that step at all, get in contact with us beforehand. Please don't let it put you off. As we've heard, not having a degree has made people in the past maybe not think about the programme. So it is for you. Get involved, and we can support you with that process. The preference for cohort 4, as long as it's safe to do so, is to include a minimum of 3 days in-person learning in a 2-day and a 1-day block. And in addition, there'd be an in-person graduation ceremony. And we've now got the dates for residentials 1 to 4 confirmed, and they're up on the screen now. And Amy, do you mind just popping that in the chat so people can refer to those dates later if they wish to do so? 1 and 2 we're planning as virtual. 3 and 4, again, we're hoping to do face-to-face if it's safe to do so, and we'll continue to evaluate the current situation. So who is the Digital Health Leadership Programme for? So fundamentally, individuals need to be in a role where they're required to drive and implement practical digital transformational change within their organisational system. You need to be able to evidence this in your application, and individuals need to be working in an NHS, public health or social care role in England to apply. We are very well aware that job titles and associated responsibilities can be incredibly varied in this space, so we don't want to exclude individuals on that basis. Applications for the other 3 nations are not yet open, but we're currently exploring this, and we'll update our website and Twitter accounts as we know more on this. And also just to highlight, the programme is fully funded by HEE for those who are eligible for the 100 places. That includes overnight stays for multi-day residentials. However, individuals or organisations would need to pay for travel costs and other expenses such as meals while travelling, additional accommodation if needed either side of a residential. In terms of entry criteria, I've got some stuff on the screen. This is all on the website, but the point I'd really like to make here is when you're thinking about your 3 to 5 years of relevant experience in informatics or digital health, we know that for some of you that will mean drawing on previous experience in roles which might not be a formal digital or a formal informatics role, because we know a lot of people, they start getting involved in bits and pieces and they sort of gravitate towards this area. So if you've got any concerns again about that, please contact us. But you are more than welcome to add and include your experience from roles which might have not had informatics digital or something in the title if it's relevant to your application and the application questions. So in terms of what you'll do differently, as part of the programme, you'll start by setting out your goals for the year in a personal development plan, which should be agreed with your exec sponsor. And from the start and then throughout the programme, you'll be expected to engage in reflective practice about how you're progressing towards those development goals. As part of undertaking the programme, you'll be expected to identify themes or programmes within your place of work that are of strategic benefit to your organisation. And you'll then apply your learned skills and knowledge to practice in the workplace using those themes or programmes of work that you've identified. And what this will enable you to do is apply those best practice models, frameworks and approaches. You'll use learning journals to capture the translation of your learning. And we know for some people, reflective practice is actually quite a strange thing to get used to. So again, you'll be well supported as part of that. And at the end, you'll celebrate completion of the programme, coming together with your peers, presenting highlights of both your professional growth as well as the impact that you've made in your workplace. I'm now going to hand over to Amy to talk at a high level about the programme itself, and then we'll finish off with the additional support that's available for you before handing back to Andrew.
Thanks, Asha. So here I wanted to give you a quick glance across the programme. We'll start with a digital onboarding that will give you access to Imperial systems, as well as pastoral support and short modules preparing you to academic study on a postgraduate level. From on the top of that journey, from module 1 onward, you will have grounding in the overview of health systems, and gradually will introduce you to more specialist areas in digital health. These modules are delivered online using blended learning, live webinars and live assessment tutorials to make sure that you know how to best deploy theoretical knowledge into the workplace and how to best progress in the program. The leadership module that you can see on the bottom left corner, module 6, runs across the year, parallel and in dialogue with your online modules, starting with your personal development plan that's agreed with your exec sponsor. It will help forge you connections across the cohort to collaborate with others. It will guide you on how to apply learning to your work and inform your reflective practice that will accompany your learning journey throughout the year.
Thanks, Amy. I'm just unmuting myself. Perfect. So just to finish off, just wanted to highlight other support that's available throughout the application process. We've been doing a series of drop-in webinars, as mentioned. We've now got the one on demand available, which I've posted in the chat. We do have another 2 drop-ins next week. I think Amy's already posted the link and the dates of those. So if you want to come along and ask live questions, you can do. We've done another 3 panel sessions like this. And as of today, the other panel sessions are also available on the website on demand. So we have done one with the CNIO network. We've done one with AHPs, Allied Health Professionals, and we did one with One Health Tech. So we did those last week, and they're now available on demand and fully transcribed. On the website, you'll find an application checklist and the supporting guidance and shortlisting criteria. So whether you come along to one of our drop-in webinars or you have a look at that, what we're trying to do there is be really transparent about what we're looking for in your application, how we'll be scoring you, so that you're not guessing what we're looking for in your application form. We've got other online content. Some videos have been going out today. We've got a great video that's just gone out today with Simon Eccles, Sonia Patel, Natasha Phillips and Ming Tang talking about the Digital Academy. So keep an eye on Twitter. We're available on Twitter and emails for support and inquiries. And again, just generally check out the website if you want to know more about the process, and for those that are interested in the future vision and inclusive recruitment more generally. So I think that's us. As I said, we'll try and pick up any questions in the chat, and then we'll pass you back to Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Asha and Amy. That's really helpful. And so there's a real guide there to the resources that are available, a quick bit of an overview, and hopefully that will give people a good flavour of what is going on. What I'm going to do now is just talk a little bit about FEDIP and a little bit of background of what it is, just for very quickly for 5 minutes before coming to the rest of the panel. I'm guessing that a lot of people will wonder what FEDIP actually is, what it stands for, and what it does. So FEDIP stands for the Federation for Informatics Professionals. I'm always not sure whether we've picked the right name, because if you type FEDIP into your, well, certainly on an Apple phone, it tries to auto-correct it to fed up. So, which is not a very good translation anyway. Hopefully people don't get fed up with FEDIP. But the Federation for Informatics Professionals in Health and Care was established in 2016, and its mission really is to professionalise the whole of what we do within digital health and informatics in health and care. But along with that is also a voluntary registration opportunity. So what the aim of FEDIP is to bring together people to develop the profession and put it on the same standing as other professional disciplines within health and care. So you cannot actually join FEDIP as an individual person, as a member, but you can belong to a professional body that is a member of FEDIP. So basically, the professional bodies are members of the federation, and individuals are members of those professional bodies. Currently, there's 6 professional bodies which span the whole spectrum of people working in informatics. There's AFA, which is the Association of Professional Healthcare Analysts. There's the British Computer Society. There's the Institute of Health Records and Information Management, IRIM. There's SOCATIM, which is the Society for Innovation, Technology and Modernisation. They largely work in social care and local authorities. And then there's CILIP, which is the Chartered Institute of Library and Information Professionals. And then there's the FCI, the Faculty of Clinical Informatics. So the aim really of FEDIP is to bring together those bodies, establish professionalisation through registration, and by creating this register of people who have met the standard to practice within informatics in health and care. So there's a couple of things that need to be said about that. People who are already registered as clinicians, then they are regulated through that professional route. And so therefore, we're not asking them to also join the register, although they can if they want to. But it is a means of us looking right across the professional bodies and establishing the standards to make sure that they're equivalent across all the bodies. So we do two main things. One is establishing that register and the standards behind them. And the second is acting on behalf of all the professional bodies, speaking effectively with one voice and to develop the profession in the UK. So we've done a number of things to date, but we've got a lot more to do. We are looking at a future where we think that the NHS is asking that more people who are in this area of work are registered, so that they are proving that they've got the qualifications and experience in order to carry out the jobs. So one of the things that we hear quite a lot from employers is, how do I know that the people working in this area are good enough to do the job, that they are qualified to do the job? And of course, that's quite difficult in an unregulated profession. So we are creating this voluntary registration process. But the NHS is indicating that at some point, as digital becomes more core to the running of the NHS and more vital to the running of the NHS, and indeed as digital tools and techniques become the treatment themselves, then they are looking at a point, particularly as we gain momentum, when it will be mandatory to be on a register of some kind to work in this area in the NHS. So just to finish off just very quickly, just to say what we're looking to do over the next period. We've been working with the professional bodies, establishing the standards. People can become members of the professional body and then apply to get on the register. To get on the register, you can become an associate practitioner by demonstrating that you've got a job in a valid job, if I can put it that way, where you are doing those activities. And if you want to then join the register, you can do that. We then have a process where you can apply to go up to the various different levels. There's 5 levels in total on the register. One of the things that we want to do is really focus on CPD, because we're aware that one of the things that we want to do, what we want to mark our profession, is people that know what they're talking about, that are continually to develop themselves, to understand the knowledge base, which is always changing, and we want people to be up to date. So we're really shifting the emphasis from, in a sense, from the bar to get in to actually the requirement to keep on the register will be that people are maintaining their CPD. Now, the relevance for today's discussion on that, I guess, is how does the Digital Academy fit into this? So we've been talking with folks around this, and what we want to do is we want to accredit a range of resources, educational resources, which actually demonstrate that people are meeting the requirements to be on the register. So that could be to move from associate practitioner to leading a practitioner or advanced practitioner. So we're intending over the next couple of months to look at the Digital Academy scheme and map that to the FEDIP standards, so that if someone meets and has completed the Digital Academy, then they don't need to provide additional evidence. They can provide the evidence of having completed that course in order to map against the particular standard on the FEDIP register. So we're looking to do that. We're looking to do that with a range of things. And our main emphasis over the coming year will be really to encourage CPD, encourage people to reflect on their learning, to maintain their position on the register, but more than anything else, to feel part of the community of informatics professionals and to contribute to that and build the professional knowledge base in the UK. So hopefully it'll be a really exciting time to be part of the profession. One of the other aims we have, of course, is to attract more people into the profession and make sure they hit and meet the high standards that we expect, and not least the public and the patients will expect for people who are running such a critical bit of our infrastructure. So that's a little bit about FEDIP. If you've got any questions about that, then please feel free to put those in the chat and we'll come back to those later on. I realise I've been extremely rude, and I've done that thing which I've done before as a chair, which is assume, just in my busyness, crack on without introducing who I am. So I should have said that I'm Andrew Griffiths. I'm the Chief Exec of FEDIP. I've been in that post for just over a year now. Prior to that, I was the CIO of the NHS in Wales, and decided to end with that. And I'm doing this work in the FEDIP now because I'm really keen that we see the profession develop. So at that point, I'll shut up and we'll get to the real important part of our discussion this morning, and that is to speak to Radhika and Alan about their experiences of being on the Digital Academy. And I think what we'll do, we'll come to Radhika first, and we'll just ask Radhika if she'll give 5 minutes or whatever, just to explain a little bit about your experiences of being on the Digital Academy.
Thanks, Andrew. It's fair to say that it was quite a big career milestone, really, to be on the NHS Digital Academy cohort 2. I had previously been an NHS graduate scheme alumni many years ago, and I felt that where I got to my career, that it was that there was a risk that, whilst I was doing quite well in my work, there was a risk though that I was becoming very NHS and local knowledge centric and did not have the awareness of what else was happening across the world, and really not sure whether I was able to keep up to date with the innovations that were happening around. So I felt that the Digital Academy provided that platform to get myself more up to date around things. And by then I had been in a national role for about 5 years, and I was again quite cognizant that there was a risk that even though one tries to keep as many local contacts as possible, I was quite acutely aware that there was a risk that I could find myself very distant from the reality of colleagues who were working at a more local level. And then NHS Digital Academy also provided the opportunity of building that network and engaging with peers from different organizations, different types of roles and exposure. And really, the Academy provided what I was looking for on both those aspects. Particularly to talk about the knowledge base itself, the material that is provided by Imperial College London and Edinburgh University, it's excellently curated. I cannot emphasize enough on that. I had exposure to other leadership programs, etc. But by far, the material that I've seen on the Digital Academy, the standard is extremely, extremely high. And it provides the opportunity for anybody who's on the program to make what they want to make out of it. So what I mean by that is, you could read the essential learning that the Academy puts together, and that gives you a very, very solid basis and understanding and a knowledge base. But actually, if there's a particular topic that really flags your interest, then there's loads of optional learning, and again excellently curated, that one can go deep into. And when it comes to the networking aspect, I mean, that really just blew my mind. I mean, I knew that there would be opportunities, but just the sort of relationships and the tribal the tribal form of the bond that is formed, I was just quite, it wasn't something that I was expecting. And whilst I haven't been that good at keeping in touch with everybody, what I do know is that if I needed something, I could use my Twitter account with a suitable hashtag, and I'm pretty sure that loads of people will come back and help me from all the cohorts. And similarly, there are sort of personal networks that I've built that even if I don't keep in touch with them, I can reach back to them as needed. And then the other thing was just the exposure to the international speakers who spoke to us. Again, I mean, the honesty and the candor in which they spoke to us was quite humbling. We did not have, unfortunately, an in-person graduate ceremony, but we had the Chief Scientific Officer, no less, who attended our virtual graduation ceremony, and that despite him being so busy around the COVID pandemic. And it was quite a motivating presence of all these various individuals. That's also left quite a long-lasting impact on me.
Great, thank you. Alan, do you want to come in?
Absolutely, yes. Gosh, there's lots covered there, which that's stolen some of my thunder. So that's really really good. Yeah, so I'm Alan Sharp. I currently work as a digital transformation consultant in South Central and West CSU. As I said, I joined BCS, FEDIP member. But when I joined the academy, I actually applied when I was working as a service manager in local authority social care. I applied for cohort 1. But was unsuccessful because I think in cohort 1 there were certain sort of senior managers in the NHS they wanted to try things out on cohort 1. But I got some great feedback and I used that sort of in my application for cohort 2. So I think picking up on what Ash has said, you know, there's going to be lots of applications. If you'll get feedback and use that, don't give up. It's a great program to get on and keep trying. I say use that feedback against them. Really, you know whether the areas you've got to cover off. As I say, I worked in social care for 20 years. I led informatics teams there, and really my play was that with the long-term plan, clearly there's joining up of health and social care, and I made the argument you need to have social care people in that room, not only for what I could gain from it, but also what I could potentially provide to other people on the program. And certainly that's been the case. So people came to me either during the sessions or afterwards on all the communications we've got and have asked me for what do you think, or what's the background to this in social care. So it's a really good kind of the networking, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Yes, the course quality is excellent. You get access to kind of world leading people. We had one seminar where some chap in America was getting up in the middle of the night to do a webinar for us. Yeah, it's mind-blowing the access to content that you've got, and you know, so a lot of that you can download the videos and they're with you to use in the future. I would say that yeah, you don't need to be an IT geek to be on it. So let's just put that kind of fallacy to bed. Really key to it is that it's clinicians, it's professionals working across the sectors, lots of kind of nurses, people in social care, people in primary care who have got an interest in this area. So don't feel put off that you're not an IT professional expert. That's not what this is about. You get given some a background and grounding in kind of awareness of things without needing to. They're not teaching you to be programmers, for example. So don't worry about that aspect of it. And I think what was key there is bringing together all these different people from these different fields. And what was great, I was on the first, hopefully the residentials will be able to start up soon again. But what was great is on that first residential, you go and meet these people and you feel like terrible imposter syndrome. But they did a great big Mentimeter and everybody in the room felt the same. And you realise actually everyone feels, you know, absolute respect for everyone else on the programme. In terms of there's a few other things I just wanted to cover. Yeah, the peer group, the support you get is fantastic. You get divided up into a small peer group that you work with throughout the programme. We are really tight. We've got our WhatsApp group. We're in contact every day, even now. So we finished a year ago. You've also got, you'll probably have a WhatsApp group going on for the cohort for that year. And also there's the alumni. So that's getting bigger every year. And as I say, every day you get messages come up. Has anyone got experience of putting this system in, or has anyone had problems with this problem? You know, with getting approval for something. Has anyone got an example of a document that could help me for approval of this? It's a really great supportive group, but also not just from the content and things like that, for just moral support. We're all dealing with the same challenges, and particularly over the last year, that has been a fantastic source for all of us to kind of help us get through the last 12, 18 months. I would say when you do apply, what's quite key is who your sponsor is. Make sure it's someone that can give you some time and is fully behind kind of advising you throughout the process, because that's really important as you go through, because you will need some work time put aside for this, and we're all very busy. and it will get tricky at times. So you need that person to back you up on that. But I'm a glutton for punishment. I've decided to stay on and do the MSc. So you've got that option if you wish to. But yeah, I would say give it a go. Best of luck to everyone, and look forward to answering any questions you've got, really.
Okay, great. Thanks, Alan. I'm just looking at the chat and just to see any questions. I think, Asha, you've answered one of the questions there. So I just encourage people, if you've got any questions that you'd like, put them in chat, or now we're at the end, the sort of summary bit, really. If you want to speak, then you are welcome to do that. But so just raise your hand in the normal way, and obviously take yourself off mute, and then you can come in and ask a question without writing in chat if that is preferable to you. So I'll just kick off just with one question using Chair's prerogative, as it were. I thought it was really fascinating to hear both of your experiences and some of the things you said about the sort of imposter syndrome. Do I fit in this? Will I be out of place? You know, I think everybody, as you've rightly pointed out, Alan, everybody feels that in whatever environment they are. Do I match up with the rest of the tribe, as Radhika called it? But that's, from what I was hearing, that quickly went and you felt part of it. I was just interested in asking, perhaps we can come to Radhika first, what you felt was the main thing that you got out of the experience? You know, if there was one thing, I know it's difficult to say, but what would you highlight?
I just came out, Andrew, feeling quite relevant. If sort of to summarize the whole experience, because I just knew that I was, basing my decisions, my thoughts on, the latest knowledge, but also really reflecting, like Alan said, we had him from social care, but there were several others from local authorities, very varied backgrounds. And I knew that I was talking based on real life user experience of people from on whom the policy might change. So I think relevance was number one thing. And I think I just came out with, if I may say so, some level of pride, because it's quite a difficult. I mean, I'm not sort of trying to scare anybody, but it's not an easy thing to go through the cohort as well. It can be quite demanding on your time, managing family, managing your general workload, etc. So there's an element of pride to completing something, and completing something that's quite cherished as well.
Yeah, great, thank you. No, I think that's really key, isn't it? Is you want the thing that you're doing to be challenging, because otherwise, what's the point of doing it?
Yeah.
But then, of course, it's great to hear that the content give you confidence, as well as getting the experiences of the other people from different backgrounds. Alan, can I ask you the same question?
Yeah, I'm going to be cheeky and say two things, actually. I think, first of all, for me, it was the general grounding of all elements of the NHS and how they fit together, that they were all given prominence in that, and you're looking at it as a whole system. But also, the main thing which we all say is about that peer group and the support you've got. You go through a shared experience together, and the way that binds you is unbelievable. And it's interesting what you say about that imposter syndrome, because it's all done anonymously on Mentimeter. And on the last session, there was a repeat of the exercise, and it was really great to see how people changed, and the kind of, there's a real camaraderie in the group. So yeah, I'd welcome all of cohort 4 into the group, really.
Yeah, good. So you all realise how bad you were, that you're all as bad as one another. Is that what it was?
I like to be more positive than that.
No, I know it's great. It's a good thing. I think one of the lovely things about that is what you're talking about, is you're building community, aren't you, and a network, and it's giving you confidence and recognition that you do know what you're talking about, backed up with the knowledge, which is testing you. So that's really helpful. There's a question here about what's the biggest single change you've made in how you approach your work following doing the course. Don't know who wants to take that first. I'm going to pick on someone. Radhika, go on.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I think, it's one always uses these words like, oh, evidence base. But I think it's used, well, I have seen it used quite lightly before. And I think since the Digital Academy, I have found myself naturally more disciplined about being evidence-based. So there's it's not even I feel like it's sort of it's just a natural expansion now of my way of working, where I'll research something, take that time, talk to people. So there's a very solid module on user design that does have a massive influence on you. So you know that there's a massive risk around making assumptions which are either not evidence-based or then based on your personal experiences and not really representative of majority of people or people who really it would have impact on. So I think I've been more aware of that. That's the change I've made.
Yeah. Okay. Alan, is there anything you've changed jobs as well? Have you?
I've changed jobs, yeah, and this was a major part of it. So yeah, that's not to be underestimated. I mean, I wouldn't say that's put down as one of your reasons for your sponsor, but yeah, that's one of the benefits. Yeah, I would have said the user experience, but secondly, I think there was one of the modules. This is about the systems you work with, and you realise that basically you don't work as an island. So a new system supplier will talk about a completely like fresh, pure build. You don't exist in that world. Everything is interacting with other processes and systems which are outdated or older, and it's that realization you don't get that perfection. And so how do you kind of hold that tension between that? And that was quite a kind of realization, and not beat yourself up about that. It's inevitable. You're going to have to interact in that complex system. So that was really quite good to spend some time thinking about that and sharing experiences with people.
No, I think that's really helpful. I think, again, just reflecting not of my experiences of the Digital Academy, but other learning experiences, I think one of the powerful things is when realizing that the way things, the reality, the messy reality of some things and the complexity of it. Sometimes we can think it's because we don't know enough. And indeed, there's probably a bit of truth in that. But it is about recognizing that these things are really hard to get right, aren't they? And difficult. Great. Got a couple of comments about sort of information analysts. And I wonder whether there were any information analysts on your cohort. That's got you thinking now.
They were, Andrew.
Yeah.
I mean, I come from I worked for a short duration as an information analyst, but I was a business analyst. But there were quite few who had come from my information analysis background.
Yeah. So again, just you, in a sense, you can testify to the relevance of the course and for that, because I guess one of the things is, again, as you said earlier on, is just learning from other people, isn't it, and picking that up and also contributing. So there's a bit of a question here around your sponsor. I wonder whether you're willing to disclose who your, the job title or whatever of your sponsors, and really any thoughts about how did you actually gain their support? And how much time did you need from them over the period of the duration? Warts and all. Alan, you look as if you've got something to say.
Okay, so
bearing in mind this is recorded.
Yes, it is. Okay, yeah, thank you for the reminder. So I had to swap sponsors because I swapped organisations partway through. The fact it's free is a really good selling point, so just don't keep that in your back pocket. I was sponsored by the Director of Social Care in the local authority. I think it's important to have someone that can not just got your back, but also if you need to get those contacts, you will, for some of the exercises, you need to gain information, data, work with other people in the organisation. So you need someone with some clout. And also someone who's got the time for you. I think inevitably we all struggled to get the amount of time we needed from our sponsors. I think that's always an issue, which is why the kind of peer support's very important. As I said, I swapped organisation. Imperial was fine about kind of facilitating that. Yeah, as part of my new role, I changed sponsor as part of that. But that made it, yeah, there was a new challenge with these kind of the examples I was using swapped partway through. But yeah, use the fact it's free is a really good selling point.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm sure every line manager, whatever, likes to hear that. Radhika, have you got any thoughts on
Yeah, Andrew, my sponsor was Director of Digital Transformation then in NHS England and Improvement. They were very supportive, but I wasn't able to have, I'm not sure if I even had one sort of proper one-to-one regarding the Digital Academy, and that was just due to the sheer the time pressures really on it. But my sponsor was on cohort 1, so there was generally, like, on a more informal basis, there was a lot of support from the fact that they were on cohort 1, so they understood the pressures on the time pressures on assignments, and generally sort of they were quite sympathetic towards that. I wasn't actually able to take any planned study leave beyond residentials, and that was just again because of the business pressures we were working under. But I would say that my advice would be that try and nail that with the exec sponsors where possible. You have your dates for assignments that come through, that are shared as soon as you go live with the module, and whatever time you think, if it's 2 half days or whatever you think is appropriate, try to get that booked into your diary. I wasn't able to, and I think it had an impact on the pressure that I felt.
Great. Okay, no, thank you. That's really helpful. I was going to come to Amy or Asha and just ask whether there are any resources around a guide for sponsors, but you just put that in the chat, Amy. So thank you for that. That's really helpful. So I'm just reading it, but yeah. So sponsors get a bit of an induction as well to try and bring them up to speed. I think that's really key, isn't it? I again, from my experience elsewhere, being a sponsor and being sponsored, actually getting time is the key thing. And almost planning that forward, but that can be difficult, can't it, and challenging. But also, people, when you are the sponsor, knowing what you are required to do, clarity over that is also helpful. And I guess that's key for the application process as well. Amy, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just to say that for the sponsors, it's also quite important for them to appreciate that putting you through the program is quite the opportunity for the organization for innovation and implementation. So I think that increasingly, as Alan says, there are people who already been through, there are a lot of people whom you can point to. Radhika would be one, but we have people in national leadership roles that, if a sponsor is being a bit like, oh, what is this for? You can just flash some names and name drop that you've been here on a webinar with Radhika and Alan.
Yes. Good. No, that's really helpful. I think one of the things, I think any good line manager or senior person in an organization will see the real value of someone getting on a digital leadership program. It is prestigious, isn't it? It does give credibility, and it's really a great, I mean, certainly I would see it as a great opportunity for the organization to be learning from what's going on elsewhere as well. So that's really, really great. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else. There's a few things coming in besides well. Yeah. So again, Alan's just pointing out that fact that there's lots of people to help and support as well as your sponsor. Again, that's a really key thing, isn't it? Sometimes you can't tell your sponsor everything because you have a different relationship with your sponsor than you do with colleagues, and support from colleagues, and that ability to network is really, really helpful. Good. Okay. Unless there's any other questions or anybody who wants to raise their hand, then I'd just like to thank everybody on the panel today for your contributions. It's been really helpful. Certainly I've learned a few things, particularly from Alan and Radhika, about the experience of going on there. Just to a real encouragement to people who are thinking about applying. It's always good to think seriously about it and the commitment that's involved. That's a good thing that you're ready to do this. But then a real encouragement to put your best application in. Don't be put off by that imposter syndrome. And what it will give you is the prestige of being on a really great, credible course. You'll develop a great network of colleagues and people, and make sure that your knowledge is up to date as well. And also, I think, give you the tools to keep that knowledge up to date, which is so important. So thank you, everybody, for coming along. Hope the session's been helpful. We're going to stay on the call a wee bit longer, Asha, those on the panel. But thank you to everybody else, and goodbye.